Today's training, we're going to be talking about first meetings that lead to follow-on meetings. Basically, I'm trying to address this challenge that a lot of people have where most of their meetings in the federal market, they just don't go anywhere. I have a capabilities briefing meeting, or I meet with a potential teaming partner or somebody in the government I'm just meeting, and it doesn't go to a second meeting. It doesn't go to multiple meetings that turn into relationships. And that can stop, right? If you use a call plan, and this is what I'm going to break down today and talk about, but if you use a call plan for your meetings, you are planning for your success. And when you plan for your success, then you can start having more meetings that lead to second and third meetings and lead to those strong relationships that will enable you to hear about opportunities. So what I wrote here is if you're done with these nice chats and what I like to call great meetings, right? And you want to sit there and have a chance to move your opportunities forward, then that's exactly what this training's for. I don't want you to have great meetings ever again. I want you to have successful meetings. The difference between a great meeting and successful meeting is a great meeting is everybody loves each other. It's like, oh my God, that was such a good deck. We had a good discussion, and then it goes nowhere, right? Hence the idea of this training. A successful meeting moves the relationship forward. It moves the sale forward, even incrementally, right? It could be something like you got an NDA signed. It's like, okay, we move forward. It could be they told you a bit of information that helps you understand their challenges more. Whatever it is, a successful meeting is one that moves the relationship and the sale forward. A great meeting is when you just go, man, it was awesome, but I can't really tell you why. Like there's nothing that tells me why it's awesome for tomorrow. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. I want you to stop wasting those meetings. I'm going to break down today's training for first meetings that can lead to those follow-on meetings. I'm going to break it down into 5 sections today and move pretty fast in here. The first thing is I just want to level set. I like using that term occasionally, but I want to level set on what's the purpose of the meeting, right? And then once we have that, I'll start diving into the idea of a call plan. And it begins with setting the objective for your meeting. The objective is your measurement of success. Remember I said a successful meeting. That's how you know you're going to have a successful meeting is you define that objective. The third bullet that we have here is defining the purpose of the meeting. And this is different than an objective. Purpose is what we're talking about. Objective is what you get. The fourth bullet, I'm going to break down the type of questions you can ask. And I want to walk you through these type of questions. But when you have the right questions, you can guide the meeting. You can be in control. There's this idea of shifting the authority into your level so you have more control. It doesn't mean you're better than the other person. It just means if you're controlling the meeting, then the meeting's going to go the direction you want. Questions allow you to control the meeting, not in any bad way, right? But it helps you control the meeting for the benefit of both parties. And then I'm going to wrap up with one of my favorite things inside of a call plan is to have an icebreaker, a way to start the meeting and avoid all the awkwardness that comes from, we just got in line, what do we do, et cetera. So hopefully that makes sense. If that's what you're here for, put meetings rock into the chat. Let me know you're alive and excited about today's training. Meetings rock. Okay, so I'm going to dive in really fast to these topics. It's such a big topic. I have an entire training course around call plans. Having meetings and being successful in a meeting is vital to your success as a business. This is important. And so I'm describing for today's training, the way I'm describing what's the purpose of a meeting are in these 4 different ways. The first thing is I'm suggesting that meetings are about establishing new relationships with people you haven't met before and maintaining relationships with people you have. And so if you're going back for that second or third meeting and you're going to keep maintaining that relationship, but you're building it from superficial or I don't even know you, we don't even know each other, right? You're building that into this stage where you've got a solid relationship where you can pick up the phone and call them and they'll talk to you and they can pick up the phone and call you. And this can be with industry partners. This can be with the government. I have that kind of relationship with people in the government, right? And at different levels. Some people I can call and I don't even have to have a preamble. I'm just like, hey, Jane or John, this is what I'm looking for. And they do the same because we're professional friends, right? So many of them I've never met, and we just have built a trust. And so this idea of maintaining that relationship and building that trust are in there. Other people I call up and I'm like, hey, hi, do a little, some of that nice to, et cetera, but we're still building that relationship. I value the relationships that are out there. And one of my favorite ways of showing that is to try to give into that relationship. Okay, second thing about what's the purpose of a meeting is to discuss topics of mutual value. And this is really important. When you go into a meeting, there's a reason somebody else is in that meeting, and there's a reason why you're in there. And so you want to figure that out and have a mutual value in there. You both are trying to achieve a certain goal. The other thing about meetings, from my perspective, is meetings are designed to get action items. And I'm talking about for federal sales, right? For most of us, we're in the federal sales side of the business, and hopefully that's why you're here, is that we're focused on somehow moving our company forward on an opportunity or on business development. We're just trying to learn more about a company or an agency. We want to go into these meetings and have action items that come out of it that enable us to move forward. In this case, I'm saying move an opportunity forward. If I find an opportunity I like and I put it in the pipeline, then I need to move it through the pipeline. I just don't jump to proposal, right? And so I'm moving it through the pipeline, and by having action items coming out of meetings, I'm able to move it forward. I determine those action items ahead of time. The last thing is something I had said already at the start of the training today, is that you want to have successful, not great meetings. Great meetings, everybody loved the meeting. It was a great meeting. Hey, we should do it again. And a successful meeting moves the opportunity forward, moves the relationship forward. A successful meeting almost always has a next meeting, right? My friend Tim and I were so good at this that we will not get close to 5 minutes before the end of a meeting before one of us is like, hey, let's get our next meeting on the calendar, right? I mean, and we have to have a reason. Sometimes we'll go months if we don't have another reason to follow up. But for most of us, we're trying to get another meeting, and we want to do that. So from a high level, that's the purpose of a meeting, right? Is some of this, those ideas I shared. Now, when you go into a meeting and you think to yourself, well, Neil just said I'm supposed to have a successful meeting. How do I have a successful meeting? The way you have a successful meeting is to use a call plan. And I've got my call plan that I'm willing to share with you. And I'll tell you how you get that. But you use a call plan that is sending you in already defining what you want coming out of the meeting. You need to know what you want. You can't go into a meeting and just not have any particular direction or goal or any objective set. And so the first thing I put onto my call plan is an objective. What do I want to get out of it? I put here, this is your selfish goal for this meeting. If I'm going into a meeting with somebody from the Army or somebody from, Booz Allen or whatever it is, what do selfishly I want out of this? What is my measurement of success in this meeting? And it is totally okay to be selfish. I'm not going to be selfish the whole meeting. I'm not going to be selfish the whole planning. Just this particular section, your objective needs to be selfish. And an example of being selfish here is to sit there and say, I want to get an NDA. So if I'm going to go team up with a particular company, not team up, if I'm going to go start to try to establish a relationship where we could team on opportunities, I teach that an NDA is a fantastic way to start a business relationship with another small business or large prime, either business, either size. But an NDA is a written document or a written way of saying we have a relationship we're working on. And the reason I say this, especially with a large business, is that if you have an NDA, it had to go through 3 or 4 people. That's an investment on their side. So if I can get them to do that, I've just moved that relationship forward. And so that's an example, is what's your selfish goal for the meeting? What do you want to get out of it? That's your objective. You don't share your objective with the other person. I'll talk about purpose in a minute, what you do. But when you go in, your objective is just to keep you focused. The reason I'm in this meeting is this one primary objective, right? And if it's a fairly easy thing to get, then you can have a secondary objective. Otherwise, you just want that one primary. The reason is because if you give yourself a secondary objective, we always end up just getting the secondary and not the primary. You need your primary objective achieved before you go after a secondary. So anyways, you don't share this with the customer. It's designed to focus you and say, that's what I want out of this meeting. All of your meeting prep is going to drive towards this. I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but like all the questions you're going to ask, some of the research that will help you lead to that objective, they're driven by you writing a statement down. Does not have to be big. And this is an example of where I said an NDA, right? An NDA is not a huge objective, but it is definitely a movement forward in the sale. If I'm talking to a contracting officer, right, my objective might want to just, I might set an objective like this. I want to get them to tell me to do something. I don't care what it is. I just want them to tell me to do something. That's my objective. The reason I would set that objective is because if they tell me to do something, then I can do it and demonstrate to them that I'm listening and that I'm willing to take advice. I don't ever tell them if they go, hey, go register in the supplier portal. I'm like, supplier portal for the Navy. Got it. Let me take that. Even if I just registered before I came in because I'm good at preparing, I'll still sit there and say, okay, now I got them to tell me something, which just gave me like 5 or 10 reasons to reach back and touch base with them. Hey, I just want to thank you for the meeting. Hey, I wanted to thank you for giving me that action item. I'm following up. I found the site. I'm going to gather some details, get it done. I really appreciate that. Hey, I just want to let you know I registered in the supplier portal. You mind if I follow back up and ask a question? Can we look at it together to make sure it aligns with maybe what you're looking for? Whatever it is, they've told me what to do, and so I can have reasons to follow up, and I have ways to demonstrate to them that I do what you tell me. And as a buyer and a customer, sometimes they want to know that we're listening, right? So I said it doesn't have to be big. You want to figure that out. Just one thing that moves it forward. And then it just needs to move that relationship forward, right? Move the relationship forward or the opportunity forward. When I said I want to get the KO or somebody to just tell me something, that's moving the relationship forward. If I say I want to get an NDA, that's moving the relationship forward and the opportunity forward, because now I'm closer to teaming together with somebody because we have an NDA and we'll talk about the opportunity, et cetera. Hopefully that makes sense. If it does, and you're feeling generous, go ahead and put objectives, rock in there. Objectives are the key to your meeting. If you have an objective, you can achieve it. If you don't have an objective, then you're just wasting everybody's time. Softly, I say that to you, right? But what's the point of a meeting if there's no objective? Objectives rock. All right, defining the purpose of the meeting. This is different than the objective. The objective is selfish, but the purpose of the meeting, this is kind of like us coming together and saying, hey, can we have a mutual agreement about today's discussion? I literally say that when I'm at the very beginning of the meeting. Do you mind if I tell you how I see the purpose of today's meeting and see if it aligns with what you want to get out of today's meeting, so that we're on the same page? Every single person goes, yeah, it sounds good. Now I've been given permission to talk about where we're going to go. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I use this at the start of the meeting to just pause everybody from the chit chat in the beginning to moving into the meat of the meeting. Can we stop for a second and we don't talk about everything? My purpose of today's meeting is not to sit there and get 1,000 pieces of information. The purpose of the meeting is this. I'll talk about that in a second. The last thing about purpose is you want to make sure it's win-win. So the objective is selfish for you and your company. The purpose should be win-win. You should be giving some sort of return on investment, the ROI, to both you and to the other person. You're both investing time. That's money. You're both investing time into the meeting. You should both be getting something out of it. And since you're asking for the meeting, you can take the lead of making sure you're thinking about, well, how can they get value? Not extra value, just make sure they get value. Maybe it's enough value to learn about some of the innovative things you're doing. As long as you're paying attention to what you're sharing and how it could be valuable to them, then you're totally fine. But make sure you're thinking win-win. How do I and my company get value out of this meeting? And how does the other party get value out of this meeting? And again, it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be thought about, right? That's my purpose. I gave you 2 examples of purpose statements that I use. One is that I just want to introduce. And by the way, I put it down on a bullet on my call plan, but then I'll talk a little bit extra. Like if I put 10 words here, I might say 20 or 30. Just because I gab. but the idea is I want to introduce ourselves, you to me and me to you, and establish the base of a long-term relationship. I'm hoping that this isn't just one meeting and done. I want to come back and build a relationship with your organization. How's that sound? Right? I literally just did this on Friday with somebody in the Army, pretty senior, and it was a really good meeting for me. And I feel like it was a good meeting for them too. We were able to talk about different things. I was able to bring some things I think are valuable to them. But when I said the purpose, that's what they said as well. Good. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for just a one meeting and okay, bye. I'm investing energy into this meeting with the idea that it might be valuable for my agency to keep meeting with me, right? And so that was that first one. Second one is a variation of it, right? I want to introduce ourselves and see if it makes sense to work together on opportunities in the future. So the first example was for an agency. Second example was for a teaming partner or a potential teaming partner. And those are some of my favorite. Let's spend 15 minutes and see if it makes sense for us to work together. And what I tend to add as an end to that, and if it does, then let's schedule a follow-up. If it doesn't, then we go about our ways. And you say that nice and friendly, right? And by the way, really quick before I move on, you've got to learn to role play. If you don't role play and you're not that comfortable with these, then you'll struggle, right? You'll be in there and it'll seem awkward. But everybody is awkward in the beginning until they get practice. And until you have enough meetings, role play is another way to practice. Okay, so I'm just moving fast because I only got 30 minutes and I'm down to 8 minutes left. Questions that are going to help you. I don't even know what my heading is there. This is really important though for me to remember what I wrote there. Something is missing. Wait one, just talking to myself. Okay, questions that'll guide your meeting. These are really important because people who ask questions are able to guide the meeting along. This is not an interrogation. So you don't want to write a bunch of questions down and interrogate the other party. But the questions mean if you write questions down, you go, hey, here's my objective. And here's my questions that will lead to that objective. I don't mean directly to the objective, but through the discussion in a 30-minute meeting or something, it will lead to that objective. And so having those questions are designed to guide or aid your meeting, not be an interrogation. Hey, John, why are you doing this? How many people do you have? What are you doing? It's like, nah, that's too much of an interrogation. And so you have them on your call plan, which is a written thing that you keep with you in a meeting, and you use these questions to guide the conversation. I like to say have about 10 questions in there, 7 to 10 questions. But when you have 10 questions, you'll have more than enough questions to kind of keep that conversation going for 30 minutes in a direction you want. Sometimes you'll cover down. One of my favorite things to do in a meeting is to tell the other party, hey, I wrote some questions down just to guide the conversation as I go along. So if you see me looking down and checking them off, I just got 8 questions I want to check off if I can in the time we have together. People will help you. They're like, oh, let's get to your questions. That's great. Glad somebody prepared. And usually, like if you meet with me, I might not have prepared for the meeting, but if you're prepared, you make it successful for both of us. All right, so the way I ask questions are in the SPIN format. Situational questions, these are factual questions. Usually you don't want to ask somebody in a meeting factual questions. So there's 2 reasons you ask situational questions. One is because you couldn't find the information anywhere. That's totally cool. And the other is sometimes I use it tactically just to kind of warm things up that I already know, and it gets them talking about things. But I don't sit there and say, hey, what's your website address? Or things like that. Things that are very glaringly easy to find, that'll annoy somebody. But if you're asking a question that's factual and you already know it, problem questions are those challenges and or goals. A goal can be a problem, right? We don't have this thing. I ask problem questions that are leading. This is really important inside of sales and capture is asking problem questions and then implication questions. Those are questions that are about the problem, but imagine this person has the problem, right? But if you have the problem, who else is impacted by that problem because you are having a challenge, right? And those are trying to make the problem bigger. And then the last one, needs payoff, is where you're talking about the solutioning. Today's training is not diving into this, but in your call plan, think about questions that way. Okay, so let's talk about the first couple of minutes that you go into a meeting. This is a big deal for a lot of us, right? We get a little nervous. We don't know what to say. I've been teaching this for my entire sales career because I learned in sales when I was growing up, and I've been doing sales my whole career with other jobs around it, but basically this theme of sales. And in the old days, they used to tell us to look behind somebody's desk, and if they got a fishing photo or somebody at Disneyland or these kind of things, start talking about it because it creates a commonality. And I don't know about you, but when somebody calls me and I don't know who they are, I don't have any interest in talking about my kids or anything else to them. Who are you? I barely have time to talk about my kids to my neighbors or something. Why would I talk to you? And not just that, I'm like, I'm here. I'm a busy guy. I'm in a meeting. Why are we talking about this fluff? And then I feel bad. So then I'm polite and I start talking to you about my kids or my golfing. And we eat up 5 or 10 or even 15 minutes out of a 30-minute meeting on something that doesn't matter. And so what I learned a long time ago and started teaching, and this was long before I even started the chamber, I started teaching this idea that you want to talk in your icebreaker about something that leads right to the meeting. And so this idea of an icebreaker is, how do you go from shaking hands in the old days when we went face to face? How do you go from shaking hands to getting the meeting started? Well, this icebreaker that leads into the meeting is how you do this. And so you want to research the person you're meeting. I mentioned that I had a meeting on Friday with the Army contracting officer, and I found 2 articles that they had been interviewed in, and I was able to look at that. So my icebreaker was, hey, I was reading that article that you wrote. In fact, I had so many icebreakers for them. Like, one of the icebreakers was, did you see President Trump just dropped a new executive order? Excuse me, not Trump, but the Army secretary. He just dropped this order. Did you see it? That was really interesting. And in there, it had things related to what we were going to talk about. So it was perfect. For 1 minute or 1.5 minutes, we talked about that. It's like, wow, yeah, a lot of changes coming fast. Okay, well, can I tell you about the purpose of my meeting, right? So I use the icebreaker to lead in. The icebreaker makes sure that you're maximizing the amount of time in there talking about your objective and the questions you have. You were not there to build a friendship. If your relationships eventually turn to relationships, great, right? Or friendships, excuse me, that's great. I have so many friends in the professional world now because we've been talking together, but not in the first 2 or 3 meetings, right? In there, you're trying to establish business relationship. From that comes a personal, more friendship relationship if you want it. All right, so keep that in mind for starting that. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First thing is, and this is really the most important thing for any meeting you have, any meeting, determine the objective. When you have the objective, all the other planning becomes easier. Then once you have the objective, put in questions and start asking 7 or 10 questions. Write it down in the call plan. Those questions are designed to lead to the objective so that you can meet that objective. And then the last thing is, at the start of the meeting, use an icebreaker so you're quickly feeding in. That icebreaker also shows that you cared enough about them to do your research to even come up with an icebreaker. I've used icebreakers where I've referenced something somebody wrote 10 years ago. They're like, oh my God, I forgot all about it. And they have a renewed sense of pride about what they had written, which I thought was cool enough to mention. And then, they like it. I have that good start to the meeting. I really liked what you wrote because it kind of leads into what I was going to talk about today, right? That kind of thing.